So in the previous video, the first part of the question or philosophical question, whether are we responsible for our emotions, we saw that um, there we can talk about responsibility in this question in a different way, and we decided about one sense, one meaning of responsibility. So when we ask the question, are we responsible, we can basically, this question boils down to a very specific question, that are the emotions kind of thing uh, where reason could play some role in the inquiry, in the process. For example, when I say, um, you said nasty, something nasty, and I became angry. So, where is the place for reason? It's place of for reason. The place for reason could be in the process, in the sense that you said X, Y, Z. You said that your mother doesn't love you, and I become angry. So, instead of getting suddenly angry, if I think about what was being said, is it true that my mother doesn't love me? And I think I go ask my mother. So seems that there might be the the right question, the appropriate question about responsibility would be to ask that in the whole process of emotions, getting the stimulus and then reacting, is there any place for reason, thinking, reflection? And that's the real question. That's what we mean when we talk about responsibility. Are we responsible for our actions, or sorry, emotions? So there are different views of emotions by different philosophers, and to answer the question whether there is place for reason about emotions, can we reasonable, can we be reasonable about emotions, responsible in this sense? We will consider 2-3 views by different philosophers and see if emotions are the kind of things which we can be responsible, or are emotion kind of things for where there is any place for reason. So first philosopher is James Lang. uh, they their theory, according to James Lang, um, emotions are uh, emotions are almost sensory perceptions. They are, I mean, very spontaneous. For example, if I see a bear suddenly and I get fearful, then I mean, this is emotion. We see something. Let's say we see bear and then we get suddenly angry or something fearful. So this movement, for them, emotions, according to James Lang theory, emotions are bodily movements, and nothing else. Like there is nothing cognitive about it. We just, you said something and I get angry. I see something dangerous and I get fearful. You said something nice and I get happy. It's like bodily movement. So on this theory, if we accept this theory, then there is no place for reason in this, right? We just see the bear, we get fearful, because for them emotions are bodily movements. We cannot do something in the process. We don't have time to think about or reflect. We would suddenly behave um, as soon as we get the stimulus. So on this theory, if we accept it, emotions are not the kind of things which we can be responsible for. So James Lang would advocate that you're if you're getting angry, then they would say it's not your fault. You can get angry. I mean, it's very uh, natural thing. You are not responsible for this. Let's consider some other philosophers. Um, Another philosopher is Martha Nussbaum. She talks about emotions in a very sophisticated way. According to her view is like emotions, judgment theory of emotions. So she thinks that emotions are judgments in our head. uh, for example, I when I hear the, let's say, she takes the example of her like mother's death, where she hears the news of her mother's death. She starts thinking about like the whole thing. She makes judgment in her head that, oh my god, someone who I loved so much has, or someone who had so much value and significance for me, has died. So this is like judgment in my head. So it somehow shows that on this theory, emotions could have like in the whole process there could be some place for reasoning or thinking, though it's not super clear from her paper. uh, Emotions as value and judgment paper, that uh, it's not clear whether she thinks that it's voluntary or involuntary. So I suddenly start thinking in my head that, okay, oh, my beloved mother who had value and significance for me has died. It's like naturally occurring in my head, or it is something which I'm like making it responsible, or I'm responsible for this like judgment in my head. So it's not super clear, but still, if we think that judgments are kind of things which like uh, has some role for reasons, then it seems that we are responsible for our emotions for Martha Nussbaum's view. But if we are like not uh, responsible at all, again, like we don't have like any place for reasoning in this like occurrence of judgment, then we are not responsible. So different, how you think about judgment, it depends on how you think about judgment, you will get different answer from Nussbaum's theory of judgment. So on James Lang theory, we are not clearly responsible for our emotions because they are just like bodily movements. Like they are psychologists, James Lang, um, and emotions are like animals have emotions, very like response, like quick response or like bodily movement. They James Lang see emotions as that very like natural response. Third philosopher I would consider is uh, Rob Solomon, Robert Solomon. He has a very interesting view on emotions. So it will be like some order. So James Lang thinks completely that we are not responsible. Martha Nussbaum is somewhere between, in between. Depends on what we mean by judgment, and uh, we'll get the answer whether we are responsible or not. And we could interpret in both direction and say maybe we are responsible, maybe we are not. The third philosopher is on the other extreme, who and who talks about emotions in a way for which on which emotions are the kind of things we are completely responsible for. So according to Rob Solomon, emotions are like actions. So, and we are uh, responsible, like we are responsible for our actions, we should be held account for our emotions. So for example, um, if I if you say something nasty, I slap you, then I'm completely responsible, right, for slapping you. It's not just, I'm not getting angry in my body, and just I not only have these like vibrations in my body, but I like took complete action, slapped you, then it, you are more responsible, right? Similarly, uh, Rob Solomon thinks that we are responsible for like these vibrations in our body. It's not very different from the action of slapping. Uh, and so, for example, in the case of like sudden appearance of bear, we get fearful, and there is bodily change, movement in us. So Rob Solomon theory argues that we are responsible. We could have behaved otherwise in that like situation if someone abuses us, or let's say that your mother doesn't love you, then uh, like we have control, we have some space for reasoning before actually slapping, right? I could similarly for like having emotions of anger vibration in our body, we can actually uh, take a pause, or let's say we can think about the stimulus. uh, so before actually slapping, for example, or let's say any other action, there's long process, right? It's not that natural that someone slaps someone. uh, a lot goes before that. Similarly, Solomon argues that before we have these emotions, for example, someone comes and say your partner is cheating on you, then before having these vibration, there is like a way, there is a long way before we start having these emotions. Maybe we are insecure, or maybe didn't find about it, we should have found about it, the source of truth and all, and before actually going through these like vibration in our body. So he has like very extreme view and revolutionary. This is my favorite view because I would at this like to believe that we should be responsible for our emotions, because saying that we are not, emotions are so important part of our um, daily life or human life, and we just shed responsibility by saying that no, we are not responsible, then this is not something which I would like to believe, because then I mean it's not interesting, first of all. Secondly, a lot of um, problems arise because we don't take responsibility for our emotions. So just because of this motivation, I myself don't know the truth. It's like more philosophical investigation thing. We have to like all these basic concepts, emotions, love, everything is obviously a matter of interpretation. But I have pragmatic reasons, motivation to believe that why we should be responsible for our emotions. So uh, I have, it's like in conceptual engineering, I'm starting from that, from the place that I would like a theory, or I would like to believe that we are responsible emotions for our emotions, so that we can avoid a lot of problems of human life. For our anger, I'm not saying that I'm like great person, I don't get angry or something, but at least I would like to believe that there is space for reasoning before I get angry or I do something. Or even for positive emotions, like we suddenly get, I certainly am the kind of person who is very emotional, gets on the other, on one hand very angry on quickly and very loving. So, and I'm sure it's true with a lot of people. But if we can think before uh, our emotions, or in the process of emotion, somewhere in between, if there is a place for reason, And I would like to believe that sort of definition of emotions. That's why I like Robert Solomon's theory, uh, that emotions are like actions, and the way we are responsible for our actions, we are responsible for emotion. There is not like very big distance between emotions and actions. It's like very less distance, or at least he said they are like very same. So these were some like views on the question whether we are responsible for our emotion. This is something I explored in my term paper. It asked this question, whether are we responsible uh, or for our emotions. To quickly sum up, yeah, responsibility could mean a lot of things. When we say are we responsible for our anger, then someone could say, okay, what sort of responsibility? Are you morally responsible, legally responsible? If I got angry, you said something nasty, I got very angry. Am I legally responsible? Can you say that, okay, I go to jail now, or let's make it a legal thing, let's go to court now? Why did you get angry? It seems that, like, for little bit anger, you certainly don't go to court. It's not legal responsibility. Or there are interesting questions about epistemic responsibility, that uh, if you said something that your mother doesn't love you and I get angry, it seems that process talk about epistemic responsibility, that I'm responsible for knowing the right thing, right? If I didn't know the truth that my mother, let's say my mother died, unfortunately, this doesn't happen, but I cannot ask her, do you love me or not? And then it makes more sense for me to get angry. But if I know, if there is way to know, I can ask her, I can speculate and think, then, and come to a decision that no, it's not completely true, she did love me, or she loves me. Then it seems that there's space for reason in this whole process of emotion. Then, so this, in this sense, we talk about epistemic responsibility, and there is like moral responsibility. Okay, you don't go to jail, don't go to court, but do you have moral responsibility, well, as like something which, something good, inherently bad and good about being angry. You hurt the other person, for example. If you get angry, you can hurt the other person's feelings. So in that sense, can you be morally responsible? And then we talked about responsibility, the word responsibility, the meaning. There could be different meaning of responsibility. For example, uh, are we can we say that we are responsible for things which we receive blame and praise for, and then we concluded that no, that's more like a test for responsibility, not the meaning of responsibility. And then we talked about, are we responsible for those things which we have control over? So, and then we decided that there could be two different ways of control: voluntary control and involuntary control. Voluntary control is like completely responsible, involuntary is like in itself, to large extent in itself, it there is a process in our head or something which, like, involuntary, uh, makes us responsible. So we decided that no, saying that we have voluntary control over our emotions is a very big claim to make. So it seems that we certainly do not have voluntary control over the outcome, but maybe we have some voluntary control about the process, the whole process. Like, it's a big, like, process, emotions, coming to have an emotion, you coming telling me that your mother doesn't love you, and then I receive that information, I process that information, and then I become very angry. So there is whole process. So maybe
we are responsible for something in the in between, in the process, in the inquiry. We are responsible for the inquiry. Maybe talking about responsibility in this sense makes sense, that we are responsible for the inquiry. If you come and say your mother doesn't love me, then I can perhaps inquire that, okay, is it true? For example, someone can come and say, okay, US president died or something like that. So we don't simply believe, we go suddenly we don't get sad, right? We go and check sometimes that in the news whether it's true or not. Similarly, before actually having the emotion, there is there a place for reasoning? We boil down this question to the question that, is there any place for reason in the whole process of emotion? And then let's like um, let's consider some views of emotions. On different views, philosophers have talked about different, like in different ways about emotions. On some theories, it seems that they are emotions are not the kind of things for which there is place for reasoning or anything thinking. And on another, it's like more in between. And on Robert Solomon's, it's more like, okay, yeah, we are responsible. So this is what I explored in my term paper, for which I got very good remarks by the philosopher who was taking the course. And yes,